Good afternoon, everybody. Let me first start with a bit of feedback. All right, we're back. Let me first start by saying thank you. Thank you for the sun, Athens, because where I come from, summer looks like this. And today, we're actually going to talk about something that is, in my opinion, very important for the future of software development, and especially for organizations that depend on software. And before you say, well, my organization uses software but doesn't depend on software, let me already say that all organizations in the world today are software organizations. It's just that some don't know it yet. Take banks, for example. Are they software organizations? Maybe, maybe not. Well, we already know that the banks that are winning the game at banking are crazy about software. Talk about fast frequency trading, or is it fast frequency? High frequency trading. Or talk about creating products that come out in mobile phones. How do they come out in mobile phones? It's not people, it's software that is actually inside the mobile phone. There's no green people walking around the mobile phone showing things on the screen. You want to create fast ways for people to get loans? That's software. Send an SMS, get a loan. That's software. So talk about transportation companies. If you heard the Maersk journey downstairs about an hour ago, you also saw that actually transporting companies depend on software to do their businesses. So all of you guys that are in the software industry, congratulations, you've made it. But on the other hand, the world depends on you. So we are faced with a new way to look at software. And before I go into this new way, and by the way, there's a free 11th principle just for you, totally free. Let me show you a video that I think explains what we are facing with software today and in general creative work.
Today the dream has been realized. We are on the moon.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
The thing is that what we are about to do is scary. But think back to those moments when you were doing things like climbing trees, feedback again, like jumping to very large pools of water from a very high rock. Your first bicycle ride, how was it? Was it easy? Wasn't it scary? Wasn't it a moment of anxiety? How about today? When you need to change your organization to deliver on the promises that you have already made, isn't it sometimes also scary? Today, we need to do things differently because the world depends on software. And let's be brutally honest. We have no frigging clue how to deliver software in large scale in a reliable manner. We're just learning that as a society. It's okay that small companies deliver great quality software on a reliable manner. That's necessary as well. But sooner or later, we have to face the fact software is like oxygen. We need it everywhere, all the time, reliably. How do we do that? How do we change our industry? That's what this is all about, and that's what No Estimates is about. Before we go any further, you will be able to get the book if you want. There's a URL at the end, and if you just go there and sign up, you get the book for free. So if you're interested in knowing more, we can't cover everything in a 40-minute presentation. You can definitely know a lot more. But let me tell you a story about where No Estimates is already alive and kicking. Many of you will recognize this image. What just happened there? Well, Iceland scored the goal against Portugal. They tied the game that everybody thought Portugal would easily win. Was that predictable? Well, it was certainly probable or possible at least, but no one really predicted that. Who believed Iceland could have the run they had in the Euro Cup this year? Only the biggest genius in the planet did. No one else. But then look what happened next. The team that couldn't even win a game against Iceland went on to win the trophy. And by the way, I'm Portuguese, so I'm very happy about this. Yeah. And exactly, and it was, what, 10 years ago? 12 years ago that we had the same happening in our home country when Greece won Portugal in the final. I was trying to see if people wouldn't remind me of that, but thank you. So why is it that No Estimates is alive and kicking and acceptable in some domains, but suddenly when it comes to software, which by the way, if nobody, if you haven't thought about this, let me just fill you in on a secret. Software is real life, just like football. Software is not in an imaginary land, where all project plans will come true magically. Software must follow these 10 new principles in order to change, in order to be scalable to the level of a society. Forget about scaling up for a big bank. That's peanuts. That's nothing. We need software to run our bloody lives. It runs on buses. It runs on cars. It runs on bloody toilet seats in Japan. It's everywhere. We have to be able to trust our lives to software. By the way, medical devices today work on software. Chemotherapy is delivered to 1 cubic millimeter spot in your brain thanks to software. Think about that. If that software fails, you're dead. Or worse, you're not dead, but your brain is. So we need to really look seriously at what we want to do with our industry. But of course, I already told you there's not 10 principles. There's actually an 11th principle. This presentation goes all the way up to 11. So No Estimates is for you if an estimation meeting makes you go like this. What? Again? Didn't we just do this last week? Or if when you need to present an estimate to somebody else, you feel like this guy over here. Oof, booby trap. There's no, by the way, if your wife or girlfriend asks you, for the guys or for the girls, I'm okay with that as well, do I look fat? There's no right answer. If somebody asks you, how long will this feature take? It's the same thing. There's no right answer. It will take as long as it takes. And of course, it's also for you if you want to make your customers happy, because that's one of the underlying cores of no estimates. It's about delivering value. It's not about being on time, it's about being on value, which is a totally different game. And by the way, it's the game we need to start playing. Let me tell you a story. This is the Shinkansen. It's Shinkansen, sorry. It's in 2014 in Japan, this train was on average delayed 54 seconds, and that includes natural catastrophes. I don't know how the trains run in Greece. Everybody, by the way, everybody laughs when I say this, even in Germany. So, and I've lived in Germany, I know the trains do not run on time. Exactly. If we can't keep the trains running on time, how the hell are we supposed to keep software delivered on time, right? But what the Shinkansen tells us is a very important lesson about managing software projects. And that lesson is what they did with this train. They did not use the old train lines to build this train. They built new train lines. Not just because they needed the new train lines for a faster train, they could have just built on top of the old ones, but because they understood that if you want to be on time, you can't have unexpected stops in the middle, like an accident that just happened in a crossing, or an animal crossing the line that stops the train, right? We can't have that. So first principle of no estimates is you either trust your process or you change your process. If you don't trust it, don't make it better. Throw it away, try a new one, okay? It's not a question, is the process good or bad or slightly bad? It's if you do not trust the process, don't even bother improving. Change it. Design a process that helps you be on time. And this is what no estimates is all about. And then the second principle is related to this graph here. This is, by the way, a waterfall project, which many of you will recognize. We have the number of bugs being collected as the blue line. This is the cumulative, or the number of open bugs over time. And you will see that actually we were only developing until here, the development phase. And after that starts what I normally call the desperately testing and fixing phase. Notice how the desperately testing and fixing phase is more than 2/3 of the whole project duration. Now, how can you be predictable with a process like that? The answer is you can't. If you were here, like today is this point here, when is this project going to be delivered? Any ideas? Never is the only sane answer. Like there's no other sane answer for this question. However, look, magic happened. Number of bugs suddenly halved. What happened? Actually, there was no magic. We just sat down and started closing bugs with will not fix, will not fix. That's what reality looks like. And yes, we did a lot of testing and fixing, and actually the quality kind of improved. But look, the more we tested, the more bugs we found. Is that a surprise? Hopefully not, because that's the job of testing, finding bugs. So if you spend more time testing, surprise, surprise, you find more bugs. What happened here? The project was actually released here. You know why? Because somebody came from the corner office down to the team dungeon and said, guys, either you deliver now or we cancel the project. Did we do a good job? Hell no. Did we release the software and make money with it? Yeah. So the question is, why the hell did we do this? And the answer is simple. We delayed the feedback cycle. And when we got there, we got finally a feedback that said, you guys suck. And we had to scramble to get the software into shape to be able to release it. So the second principle is shorten the feedback cycle. By the way, if you have a 2-week feedback cycle, you can make it shorter. If you have a 1-day feedback cycle, you can make it shorter. If you have a 1-hour feedback cycle, you can make it shorter. If you have a 1-minute feedback cycle, okay, you can stop now. But seriously, shorten the feedback cycle. And that's the only rule of Agile that really, really matters. Everything else comes along if you just work on this second principle. Shorten the feedback cycle. If anything we should have learned from Agile from the last 17 years is this. But of course, there's also other problem, and let's examine it for a second. Can estimates be accurate to begin with? This is J.B. Rainsberger talking in 2013 at ORDEV, talking about one thing that he called accidental complication, which can be easily summarized by we're not so good at our jobs. So what is accidental complication? He says that the cost or duration of any software project is a factor of the essential complication of the problem we have. For example, if you want to calculate the tax rate in a particular country, that might be quite complicated in itself. You might have actually 500 pages of laws to learn before you can actually calculate the tax rate in a particular country. So that's an essential complication, right? It's very, very hard. The problem is hard. And then there's the other part, which is accidental complication. And what is this accidental complication? It's the cost of not really doing our jobs very well. Cutting corners, not having code reviews, not really releasing all the time, therefore, compiling all kinds of crap as technical debt, etc., etc., etc. We use relative estimates in Scrum. Okay, a feature that was a 3 today, 1 year from now, once we've collected a bit of accidental complication, will it also be a 3? So relative estimation does not take into account the fact that we are really not so good at our jobs. And yes, we collect technical debt. So if you really want to be accurate in your relative estimation effort, now you need to add a factor which is accidental complication. It's getting simpler, right? Not only do you have to play planning poker, now you have to play accidental complication poker. And of course, let's not forget that there are queues, and some people take their queues very, very seriously. If you guys use Jira, you know what queues look like. It looks like, hey, dude, this bug has 2 digits. We already have bugs with 5 digits. What the hell happened? Okay, so how many of you have closed the bug with 6 months, the age of 6 months or less? 6 months. Okay, keep your hands up. 1 year. 2 years. Let's jump to my favorite, 5 years. I've closed bugs that are 5 years old. How long did that take to develop? I'm pretty sure somebody estimated that in some estimation meeting. But the bug was 5 years in the bloody issue tracking system. Now, how about the estimates for that? If you factor in accidental complication and queues, estimations are worth 0. Literally, 0. Because something may spend in the queue 100 times more time than it takes to develop. Actually, 1,000 times more time than it takes to develop. 10,000 times more time than it takes to develop. So when next time somebody asks you, how long will it take to deliver this feature, you ask him, how long will it take you before we start working on it? And no one will be able to answer that question. No one. So now build an estimate on the unknown. What the hell are we doing with our profession? This is ridiculous. We're playing with numbers just for the sake of playing with numbers. And by the way, we're having meetings, we're having discussions, escalations, conflicts because of this. This is actively destroying value from all of your companies. Actively, not by accident, actively. You are spending time, brain time, the most expensive time in the universe. You're spending brain time doing stuff that is brainless. So, but some people still argue that we can be good at estimates. So let's take that for the face value and let's look at the data. Because, by the way, in God we trust, everybody else must bring data, right? So let's look at the data. Chaos report. Up to 2004, we'll get to closer numbers. 2004, 80% of projects late or failed. How good is our society at estimating software projects? Well, let's look at the number. Not very good. That's obvious. Like, who can argue with that? But it gets better. So if we look at the chaos report from 1995, which is the data I have, I'm sorry, I don't pay that much for reports. I'm cheap, so I only have this data. But we'll have more recent data in a second. If we look at the projects that were 51% or more late, that's 68% of the projects. So not just late, a lot late. So much later that it's just, why the hell did we even bother with estimates? Right? Cost overrun, 2009, 45%, time overrun, 63%. Did it get any better? 2011, average time overrun, 63%. Are we getting better at estimates? Let's look at the evidence. It doesn't look like it. I'm sure a lot of people are making money selling you that, but it's really not working. But just in case you don't like the chaos report, how many of you do not like the chaos report, by the way? Good, smart people here. I like that. Let's look at other data. Gartner, the survey of project failure 2012. And by the way, failure is not about being late. It's like total failure, like no value delivered. Large IT projects, 28% failed. Mid-size, 25% failed. Small IT projects, 20% failed. Ha! So from 1/4 to 1/5 of projects fails, like no value, zero value out of that project. Now, try to run a society on that level of success. Not going to work. Thank God we actually have humans doing some work. Because if we had robots, like people argue that will come in the near future, Bill Gates included, Jesus, think about that. Do you want a robot bus driver to have that failure rate? Of the large systems that are completed, about 66%, 2/3, experience schedule delays and cost overrun. And by the way, this is by Capers-Jones, one of the gurus of software development. And he's talking, or he's writing for the Journal of Defense Software Engineering. So this is not a crap guy talking about no estimates. This is like a guru talking to the defense industry. This kind of errors in the defense industry can cost lives. It's not just, can we estimate a little bit better? It's about, can we keep our country safe type of discussion. So estimation is actually actively dangerous for our national security as well, by the way. Traditional projects, 50% failed or challenged. This is Scott Ambler's project success survey. But if you think that by being agile you're much better, think again. 40% failed or challenged. The reason is very simple, is that these agile projects are not following agile. They are maybe doing Scrum, but they are still following the same old management principles that got us to the trouble we're in now. 17%, this is the one that really, it really was an eye-opener for me. 17%, so almost 1/5, of the large IT projects go so badly that they can threaten the very existence of the company. Wow. Do you want to be the project manager on one of those? Talk about sleepless nights. So there's more data coming. If you want to know more, then just sign up at noestimatesbook.com. You'll definitely get this report and a lot more. But here is the principle that we are talking about. Believe the data, not the estimates. You have to provide estimates because somebody made you do it. Ha, the Nuremberg Defense, thank you for that. If you do have to, for whatever reason, it's policy, you get fired, your boss won't like you, your salary raise will not come, your promotion will be delayed, whatever the reason is, if you do have to give estimates, please do not believe the estimates you just gave. This is the worst mistake we do. It's even worse than estimating. Because estimating without believing it can be harmless, relatively harmless, but believing in your estimates. There's this phrase, Scarface, the movie, don't get high on your own supply. Project managers, please, do not get high on your own supply. So here's what the experts, like really PhD type experts on estimation say. A good estimation provides estimates that are within 25% of the actual results 75% of the time. Now, let me translate this to what I think normal people would understand. At least that's how I had to do it in order to grasp what this means. It's like this. You go to a bank because you have some extra money and you want to invest that money. Let's say you have 100,000 euros to invest. You go to the bank, you talk to the investor, and the investor say, hey, I have this brilliant investment for you. If you give me your 100,000 euros, I will give you for sure 75,000 euros back, and that's with a 25% chance that I might give you less than that. What? I thought I was coming to do an investment to gain money, not to lose money. And guess what? This is what we're telling, if we're project managers, this is what we're telling our boards. It's like, we'll only lose 25% of your money. It's no biggie. You'll get it back. What? Thank God software is a 10x product. What that means is that if you spend 100,000 on software, you probably will get back 1 million, if not more. Because if software was a margin game, like 10%, 15%, like the retail shops are in that kind of business. If you're lucky to get 10% profit in a retail shop. If software were that kind of business, we would all be freaking bankrupt by now. The only reason why software is still profitable is that the huge errors in estimation are not huge enough to cover the huge return we can get from software. That's the reality. Software will not be a 10x product forever. I mean, at some point, your customers will get on to you and say, hey, wait a minute. You're taking way too much money from me. So big consulting companies, beware, because governments are going to get smarter. And then we will not pay, and this is a true story, we will not pay 2 billion euros for a software that cost another country 300,000 to build. This is happening right now in Finland. Finland is going to pay 2 billion euros for a healthcare record management system to an American company when Estonia did that as a private project for 300,000 euros. This shit is unbelievable, and it is happening. That's money out of my kids' schools. How long are we going to tolerate this? And guess who's going to get the money? So, use alternatives to estimate-driven decision-making. And why this is important, it's not just because of what I told you, it's because of what's coming up next. Here's a story of 2 projects. This project here, on time, and this project here, 250% late. This project here, I have no clue what it was. This was a company where I was working. These are projects from 17 projects from 2001 to 2003. The average delay was 62%, very much in line with the chaos report. Sorry, guys, that don't believe the chaos report. I actually have evidence that they're not so wrong. But anyways, coming back, project 17. That project was 250% late. But just so happens that that project put the company in a new market, created a product that was far, far more profitable, and created a new business model. So not only am I telling you that estimates are always, if not always, at least very often, deadly wrong, I'm also telling you that they are worthless for running a business. Because the worst project when it comes to estimates was the most valuable project for that company. How about that for an eye-opener? You know all of those projects that have been delivering on time and on budget in your companies? They're probably all crap. You probably would have been better not doing them. And this is actually a true story from a client of ours. We were working with them and we were figuring out, okay, what do we do now? And we had this crazy idea, credit to the product owner, let's do an innovation sprint. So we spent 1 sprint figuring out, okay, let's try something else. And our goal was very clear. We want to increase conversion. It was an e-commerce website. Our goal was increase conversion. That's easy. No. So we figured out, okay, what could we try? We came up with a few options and we said, okay, there's 2 things we can try. Like one is, I see something I like, I share it with my friends on social media, and that was kind of, yay, social media, that's cool, let's do that. And then somebody said, well, as long as we're sharing, we might as well do it over email. Share it over email. Maybe you're in the bus and you're looking at the product, and then you click a button, email it to yourself. When you're home, you can buy it. And everybody was going like, email is so down. Whoa. But the guy who suggested it said, no problem, I can do it. I love to play around with email servers. Everyone gets their kicks out of something. And we said, okay, cool. As long as we can do it in 2 weeks, that's perfectly fine. So we did that. We launched the two features, and 3 days later, we had the first sale. In 2 weeks, we went from idea to release, and 3 days later, we were making money. Did we estimate anything? No, we didn't estimate anything. We just said we have 2 weeks. That's it. Put something out, and if it works, we work on it. We did a bunch of things. One of the things we did was, if the feature does not bring money, we kill the feature. By the way, kill criteria, extremely important for software. No one uses that. And the kill criteria means if it's not paying for itself, you take it out of the code base. That's that simple. How cool would it be if our products shrank in size, but our wallets grew in size at the same time? Right? That would be awesome. But no, today, just more products, more features, more, and the money is... Why? Simple. Because it takes X amount of people to manage the product when you start. It takes 10 times more amount of people a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line to manage all the accidental complication you've created in the meanwhile. But what if you could remove the accidental complication that was not delivering any value? That's a brilliant idea. Why not? And that's what we did. We tested for value, and that's the principle, and then we tested for functionality. Because what we did is just put it out, test it on 10% of the traffic. If that works, test it on 20% of the traffic, and you slowly increase the amount of traffic you send to that feature, and at some point it's live and it's bringing money. That feature is now generating around $500,000 a year for that customer. It's one feature. How did we discover it? Were we really good? No, but we tried and we tested for value, and then we found the configuration that actually generated revenues. So instead of estimating what would the perfect share to buy later feature look like, and then designing it, and then have the architecture meeting, and then do the plan, and then estimate everything, we said in 2 weeks we want it live. And then if it makes money, we keep it live. If it doesn't, we throw it away. Test for value, then for functionality, and then you don't need to test, or you don't need to generate estimates. But of course, the question everybody's asking is, can it work in real companies? If you buy the book, not the one that is free, because that's just the book, but there's a package that includes 9 video interviews with people from all over the world, you will see this video. It's with Sven Dietz, CEO of Zeitgeist, a software company, custom software company in Germany, who uses no estimates in their company. It's a real company that has real jobs paying real salaries. It's not fake. And the guy's the CEO. So if that doesn't work, it's his head. So maybe you should listen to those guys instead of people selling you estimates as a good method. So principle 6, in the end, estimation is waste. So if you can find ways to remove it or decrease the impact of estimates in your process, you're winning. But also, don't forget that we measure progress only with running software. PowerPoints are not progress. Gantt charts are not progress. Reports are not progress. Running software in the hands of customers, or as close to it as you can get it, that's progress. And of course, we have to live within a system. And in that system, there's expectations, right? Can you please do a little bit more? I mean, when I was a programmer, that was so much easier than now. Why are you guys so slow? Of course, if you would get a question like this, and how many of you have, or not a question, but more of an order, how many of you have been in that situation before? Okay, so this is the only reaction. Like, what the? Because the reality is that we live in a system. This is a true case. A team, 21 sprints. This is their velocity, number of stories, so not points, but number of stories, between 2 and 4, 1, 5, a couple of ones, but that's it, between 2 and 4. And then you put the target right here, and you go like, are you nuts? What kind of universe do you live in? The force is strong with you, but not that strong. So, and this is one of the dysfunctions, but there are more. And see how well I estimated the number of dysfunctions? So you can read more about that in the book. They are explained there. But the principle is this. The system where you work, and the system is the company or the set of teams or the program or the project, the system where you work has predictable outputs. Learn to understand the system, and then you can manage it. First learn, then manage. Don't try to manage what you don't understand, as illustrated by this graph. Okay, but we have a business to run. So can no estimates deliver? I'll show you one only example. What difference does a story point make in a project that used both story points and number of stories or no estimates? Here's the thing. They estimated the whole backlog, 75 items, with 3 story point categories, 1, 3, and 5. And then they projected, and they saw, okay, it looks like we are going to deliver on the 20th of October, 2014. This is with the estimated backlog. But then they did Excel magic. They transformed the estimates from 1, 3, and 5 to 1, 2, and 3. By the way, they're not even relative. Like the scale isn't the same. What happened to the forecast? It went to 16th of October. What? 6 days difference? That's nothing. But what if you only use one, no estimates, i.e. you count the stories as single units? The release was on the 29th of September. The conclusion is all dates are within 3 weeks of each other in a 38 to 42-week project, a margin of 8%. And by the way, if you recall the definition of a good estimate, that's a hell of a lot better than 25%. And you can do it without estimating. You can predict the output of your product, of your project, without estimating. Just like this, forecasting, using data, and looking at it. This was an example given by Bill Hanlon at Microsoft, and this is what he wrote in an email conversation with me. Once he did this exercise, he said, at that point, I stopped believing estimates were relevant or important. There's more examples. We don't have time to go through all of those. But the key thing is estimates have a horrible track record. So don't bet your company on estimates. It's that simple. In the book, I tell the story of Carmen. Carmen is a project manager who has a very difficult project at hand, very large project for a government entity. And we go through the 7-step journey that Carmen goes through to get to no estimates. So the book then explains more what are the challenges, what she learns through the process, and also how she applies that, and even including in meetings with customers, because that's also an important aspect for all of us. So you can get the book, and you can get a lot more. Like there's 9 videos with the book. At that URL, you get the free book, and then if you want, you can buy the rest. The principle number 10 here is that don't forget that the transformation starts with you. Like, don't ask management to start believing in no estimates. Do the same as Bill did. Actually show the numbers. Look, we did this estimation, and then we did this counting of stories, and boom, there's not much difference. Actually, no estimates works, or it doesn't work. It's fine if it doesn't for you. But I did promise an 11th principle, didn't I? Okay, so I ask you to take a journey with me. Imagine this. You have to drive from Stuttgart, where you live, to Frankfurt Airport, where you're taking a plane to an important meeting. That's about 200 kilometers, about 1 hour, 57 minutes, let's say 2 hours. And you go and you plan the trip because it's a plane, right? And one thing we know about planes is that they don't wait for you. It's like it's there or it isn't. That's it. Didn't make it on time? Too bad, right? So it's like you can't be late, really. So imagine you are planning your trip, And you look at the speed limits, and in Germany there's very few speed limits on the highway. So you kind of say, I can do 120 average. In most countries, that's only possible if you go through illegal speeds. But in Germany, it's actually legal to do 120 kilometers an hour of average. And it's not that hard. They have good cars, good highways, so you can do that. So you count on that, and then you say, okay, but I might need to stop in the middle because, I drink coffee when I get up, and you know what happens when you drink coffee. So let's look for a bio break stop. And you look at the highway, and there's a few ones here. And then you go, okay, so maybe I need to stop one, so let's factor in a few minutes. But just in case, I'll go to the toilet before I leave. So you write that down in your checklist, and you start planning the rest. You put all the stuff in the car in the night before, because the plane is at, what was it? Let me just say, the plane is at 9:30, right? Boarding starts at 9. You need to be there a little bit before, just in case, security check delays and stuff. So you want to wake up pretty early. 5 a.m. would be a good time. And you go like, okay, 5 a.m., I can't wake up without an alarm. So let's put the alarm, and just in case, let's put several alarms. Because alarms run on software, don't forget. And you put the alarm, and you say, okay, I'm confident. 5:30 was the alarm. That's 4 hours before the flight, 3.5 hours before boarding time. I'm safe. I have about 2.5 hours plus a margin to go to the to catch the plane. So cool. You check the average time it takes to go through security check at Frankfurt, and this being Germany, they have statistics, so you can actually check how long it will take on if it's tomorrow, would be a Saturday morning for you to go through security check. You have historical data. That's always good, having historical data. Thank you, Germans, for teaching the rest of the world how to do that. And 5:30 comes along. Your first alarm goes up. Yay for software that works. You turn off the other alarms because you don't want to wake up the rest of the family. You have a quick bye to stop by the bathroom. That was on your checklist, remember. And then you glance at the checklist, make sure you have everything. The car's already packed. You just put your clothes on, get in the car, and start driving. 5:45, you're in the car. That was quick, from waking up to the car, 15 minutes. I've done that before. It's not easy, but it's possible. And you are happy that you thought previously to have 2 sets of toiletries, so that you have one in the bag that you're traveling with and another one at home. Because imagine, have to brush your teeth and then dry it and then put the cover and then take it to the bag. No, that's a lot of trouble. So you just have 2 of everything, and you have the bag ready to go, so you don't need to worry. So 15 minutes, okay, cool. You leave a bit early, and because of that, there's no one in the highway, really. I mean, it's before 6, right? So you start driving. You go Highway 8, it's not really very good. It's getting better, but it's not really very good. You do the Karlsruhe turn, which can be really crappy at rush hour, but it's 6 o'clock. There's no one there. So you start looking at the average speed on your computer, onboard computer, it says 120. And you go like, yes, I can do this. And it's kind of an uneventful trip, but 7:15, you're maybe a bit around Mannheim or something like that, and you start to see a little bit of traffic. But it's 7:15, people are coming to the highway. It's normal, right? Nothing to worry about. You check the average speed, still on speed. We can still make it ETA 8:30. So you're on time. Everything is fine. At 7:45, an alarm comes up on the GPS. It shows a red line. But it shows a delay of 5 minutes, and you go like, okay, fine. 5 minutes is not really a trouble. You continue driving. But at 8:15, you stop. And you face the famous German Stau. And you start looking at the dial, and your average speed goes down and down and down and down. And you go like, okay, what should I do? Should I take a detour? Should I just wait? I really don't know what's going on. Let's put the radio on. So you put the radio on, and in the radio they tell you there's a traffic accident with a truck ahead of you. And it just so happens the truck is covering all 4 lanes of the highway. You're 40 kilometers away from the airport. There's no way you're going to get out of there, at least for another 2 hours. You lost the plane. So what just happened? You did very good planning But guess what? That wasn't enough. Surprise? Maybe. I mean, traffic is far more predictable than projects. Still, it wasn't enough. All the estimation you did was actually technically correct. You estimated everything correctly. It still didn't help you. And of course, in hindsight, you could have said, well, there might be an accident. Let me go the night before. But that's easy to say after the fact, right? Imagine how stupid you would have felt missing a whole afternoon and night with your family to be on the airport on time for a flight for a business reason. Huh? That's not very smart. It's only a 2-hour drive. Well, you don't see the map anymore. But it's actually a very easy drive. That drive from Stuttgart to Frankfurt is super easy. There's like, okay, there is traffic, but it's never like that. There's never a truck blocking the whole highway. And there's actually 2 highways, so there's always a possibility of a detour. But this time it failed. So what can we learn? Projects are just like this car trip. If you're going to find or to meet a plane, to catch a plane, there's only one possibility or 2 possibilities. Either you make it or you don't make it. And if you're doing projects like that, and estimates drive you to do that, then you are giving yourself a huge probability of failure. No wonder we see the probabilities of failure that we saw in the past. So the 11th principle is no projects. Stop thinking about projects. It's the wrong metaphor. Let's think about a completely different way to deliver value. But just before I finish, don't forget that the transformation starts with you, not with managers, starts with you. Prove it in your own project, and then other people will believe it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vasco. We have a limited time for questions, so 1 question only, please. The lucky winner is, so that we can change with Angel. Okay. No? No questions? Just 1 question, please.
Hi.
Hi.
But this exercise you showed us before with the estimation of the total backlog, it means that the user stories are refined, right?
Not necessarily.
Because most of the time you have very big items on the bottom and very small user stories on the top. So
It depends how many items you have. Yes, that's possible, but it depends how many items you have. So but what was your question?
I mean, how you do that forecast with 1 story point to 2 or 3 if you have big items on the bottom? Because most of the big products, you have this kind of situation. You don't know what happens there. You don't have enough time to refine all these items. So, okay, this is my scope, exact scope.
So I'm happy to answer that question in the break, because what you're talking about is absolutely true. There are big items in the bottom, but what you're not talking about is that when the items come to execution, they're all the same size. So the only question you have is how many items of the same size can we deliver? And then you can decide whether the items on the bot are delivered or not, depending on how many of those refined you can already do. So what I'm saying is, instead of trying to guess what is the whole scope you're going to deliver, which is what projects are all about, try to guess only how many items, no matter what items, are we going to deliver if we continue at this pace. And then you manage the backlog to fit that pace. Because what we should do in a project, or actually in flow, is that we know how much stuff we can deliver. The only open question is, which of those huge items should we even start? That's the key question.
Thank you, Vasco.